The city of Nova Pax stretched across the side of the planet Valeris, like a web of light and metal. Skyscrapers reached high into the sky, their peaks disappearing into a thin haze of atmosphere, and bridges of polished alloy connected them like threads holding a fragile tapestry together. Neon signs flashed advertisements for interstellar travel, education programs, and entertainment, reflecting in the surface of the river that cut through the city's center. Life on Valeris was orderly, controlled, and safe, at least on the surface. Humans had worked for decades to colonize this remote sector of the Andari cluster, and most had adapted to the delicate balance of alien ecosystems, political agreements, and technological demands. Yet, beneath the sparkling lights and routine hum of the city, an uneasy tension threaded through the citizens. Nova Pax thrived on predictability, but the universe rarely respected order. Captain Elias Train stood on the observation balcony of the Nova Pax spaceport, looking out at the stars beyond the planet's orbit. He was tall, with a lean frame and sharp eyes that seemed always to measure distances, angles, and possibilities. His pilot suit clung to his body, designed to support both life and mobility in zero gravity, and his helmet rested under his arm. Ships of every shape and size rose and fell from the launch pads below, some glowing with engine thrusters, others silently drifting into the void. Elias had seen the skies countless times, but tonight they felt different. There was a subtle tension in the air, an almost imperceptible pause in the rhythm of space travel. Something in the quiet of the universe was not right. He checked his console again. The mission for the night was simple: reconnaissance near a sector that humans had begun calling the Silent Sky. It was uncharted, vast, and strangely empty. No signals of any kind were detected there. No asteroids, no gas clouds, no ships. The very emptiness of it made Elias uneasy, but routine missions were a part of his duty. He was an experienced pilot. He had navigated asteroid fields, evaded hostile ships, and survived magnetic storms near collapsing stars. A quiet sector with no life should have been nothing to worry about. Yet a strange intuition told him that tonight would be different. The intercom in his quarters blinked, and Elias leaned closer. A voice came through, smooth, neutral, professional. "Captain Train, your ship is ready for departure. All systems have been checked. Estimated transit to Silent Sky coordinates. 3 hours." He nodded, already slipping into the rhythm of preparation. His hands moved automatically over the controls, checking the engine output, verifying life support, and running diagnostics on the navigation array. Even routine checks carried a ritual quality, and he performed each step with a precision born from years of experience. As he settled into the cockpit, a small blinking light drew his attention on the communications panel. It was unusual. The console had been quiet. No messages, no signals, no routine updates. But now a small icon pulsed faintly, red and urgent. Elias frowned, pressing the panel to bring it to life. The screen glowed, and a face appeared. At first, he thought it might be a joke, a transmission sent as a prank from one of the cadets. But the face was not human. Not entirely. The skin had a translucent quality, faintly reflecting the light of distant stars. The eyes were large and luminous, shimmering in shades of violet and blue. Hair, if it could be called that, floated as if underwater. A cascade of light that shifted with every movement. The alien girl's expression was urgent, fear evident in her features. "Captain Train," she said, her voice soft but firm, echoing in his mind rather than his ears. Elias blinked. The transmission was direct, almost telepathic. Seconds before it shifts. "You must leave." He leaned back in his seat, confused. "Who are you? What are you talking about?" His voice sounded strange to him, even as he spoke, as if the words themselves struggled to bridge the space between him and the stranger. "My name is Lyria," she said. Her eyes widened, filled with a terror that made his chest tighten. "I am of the Alari. You do not have much time. The sky, the silent sky. It moves, and it does not forgive hesitation. You must leave now." Elias hesitated. He had read reports about the Alari. They were considered extinct, lost to the galaxy centuries ago. Their technology and culture mostly erased from memory, and yet here was one. Young, alive, and warning him of something he did not understand. His rational mind struggled to reconcile the impossibility of her presence with the urgency of her warning. "What do you mean, it moves?" he asked, gripping the edge of the control panel. "What is going to happen? The silent sky is not what you think," Lyria said, her voice trembling. "It is not empty. It watches, and it tests. It responds to those who approach. Seconds before it shifts, you must leave. If you hesitate, you will be lost." A sudden chill ran down Elias's spine. The sector had always been quiet, almost lifeless. Ships had passed through it before, none returning with accounts of danger. Yet the girl's warning carried a weight that could not be ignored. There was something in her expression, in the way she moved her hands, in the faint tremor in her voice, that made him question everything he had thought about the silent sky. Before he could respond, the console flickered. Images flashed across the screen, impossible and fleeting. Stars bending, collapsing into themselves, and reforming as if reality itself were being rewritten. Shapes that defied logic moved across the void. Vast forms that stretched beyond comprehension, shifting like shadows in a dream. Elias's heart raced. He had flown through cosmic storms, navigated collapsing wormholes, and faced hostile aliens. But nothing in his experience prepared him for this. The girl's eyes met his again, steady now despite the fear in her face. "You see it," she said. "The sky is alive, Captain. It tests, it judges, and it does not care for weakness. Humans have potential. You can survive, but only if you act without hesitation. Leave." Elias swallowed hard. The rational part of his mind screamed that this was impossible. Yet his instincts, honed from years of piloting and surviving, told him to trust her. He adjusted his course, preparing to retreat from the sector. Engines roared to life, and the ship lifted off the launch pad, leaving the city behind. As he climbed through the atmosphere, the stars above seemed to shimmer strangely, the constellations subtly shifting in ways he could not explain. The silence of space felt oppressive, pressing against him as though it had weight. He glanced at the coordinates for the silent sky, now behind him, and shivered. He had never felt the universe so aware of him before, so focused on the presence of one human ship. Lyria's transmission persisted, guiding him. "Do not turn back," she warned. "Do not hesitate. The longer you stay, the more the shift will claim." Elias adjusted the ship's course again, the engines straining under the sudden acceleration. His eyes flicked across the displays, monitoring fuel levels, life support, and navigation. But his mind kept returning to the girl. She was not just a warning, she was a lifeline, a reminder that the galaxy was alive in ways humans had only begun to understand. Minutes passed, though time felt distorted. Every second stretched and contracted, as if the silent sky were playing with perception itself. A sudden flash outside the cockpit made him jerk forward in his seat. A star blinked out, extinguished in an instant, leaving an empty void where light should have been. The sight made him gasp, a visceral reaction that surprised even him. It was no longer just a warning. The sky itself was changing, and he was in its path. He steadied himself and followed Lyria's directions. She spoke of anchoring the mind, of focusing on what was real, rather than what the sky projected. Elias did his best, centering his thoughts, relying on instinct, training, and a strange sense of calm that he could not explain. The ship responded to his commands with precision, navigating the shifting void like a needle through fabric. Still, the sense of being watched never left him. Shapes moved in the periphery of his vision, vast forms that seemed almost alive, folding space in ways that defied physics. Each flicker made his pulse quicken, but he pressed on. Every maneuver, every adjustment, brought him farther from the sector and closer to safety. Finally, after what felt like an eternity compressed into minutes, the immediate danger seemed to ease. Stars returned to their normal positions. The void seemed less hostile, and the oppressive awareness of the silent sky receded slightly. Elias allowed himself to breathe, though he knew this was only the beginning. The sky had shifted, yes, but it was not done. Lyria appeared one last time on the console, her expression calm but serious. "You have made it past the first moment," she said. "The sky tests all who enter. Remember this, Captain. Your species has potential. You have the courage, the creativity, the strength to face what comes. But do not think this is the end. The silent sky will shift again. And when it does, it will remember." Elias nodded, though she could not see him. He understood the weight of her words, the responsibility that came with surviving this encounter. Humans were small in the vastness of space, fragile compared to stars and cosmic entities, yet somehow capable of defying impossible odds. That realization filled him with a mix of awe, fear, and determination. As he plotted a course back to Nova Pax, Elias could not shake the memory of Lyria's eyes, their unspoken message of trust, warning, and hope. The universe was no longer a silent backdrop to human ambition. It was alive, aware, and testing those who dared to explore it. And humanity, fragile yet resilient, had just taken its first step into understanding its place in the cosmos. The city below awaited him, bright and alive, unaware of the silent test unfolding just beyond their sky. But Elias knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The silent sky had shifted, and humanity had survived, at least for now. And somewhere in the void, Lyria watched, waiting for the next moment, knowing that the dance between humans and the shifting sky had only just begun. Elias's ship moved through the calm of space, but the calm was deceptive. The stars no longer seemed fixed. The light of distant suns flickered as though breathing, and constellations wavered like reflections on water. Despite having survived the first shift of the silent sky, he knew he had not yet escaped its influence. The warning from Lyria, the alien girl, echoed in his mind. The sky tests all who enter. It remembers. He didn't fully understand what she meant, but instinct told him that the silent sky was not merely a void. It was aware. It could see him, track him, and adapt to him. His ship hummed with life, the engines keeping a steady rhythm as he checked the navigation systems. He tried to make sense of what he had witnessed, replaying the fleeting images in his mind, stars bending, vast shifting forms, and the strange sensation of space folding in on itself. There had been a pattern, a rhythm that he could not grasp fully, but he felt it somewhere deep inside. Humans had always been observers of the universe, cataloging stars, mapping planets, and measuring gravity waves. But tonight, observation alone was not enough. Action mattered. A soft ping on the console drew his attention. Lyria's face appeared again, this time larger, sharper, more detailed. She seemed closer, as if the vastness of space had shrunk to a personal scale. "Captain," she said, "the first shift is over, but the silent sky does not rest. It responds to those it deems capable. You survived the first test, but the next will be more difficult. Listen carefully." Elias leaned forward, gripping the control panel. "What do I need to do?" he asked. "You must anchor yourself. The sky moves not only in space but in perception. If your mind wavers, it will take you. It is unpredictable, but it is not chaotic. You can see it, but only if you focus on the present. Trust your instincts, not your instruments. Instruments can fail. Instruments cannot understand the sky." Elias frowned. He had relied on instruments all his life, navigation systems, life support monitors, autopilots, but she was telling him that these tools could not protect him now. He had to rely on something more human: intuition, courage, and creativity. The shift began almost immediately after her words. The stars flickered, then elongated, stretching into ribbons of light that twisted in impossible angles. Space itself seemed to ripple, like the surface of a pond after a stone is thrown. Elias's stomach lurched. the sensation unlike anything he had experienced in zero gravity. His hands clutched the controls, adjusting thrusters, stabilizing the ship. But he realized almost instantly that no amount of technical skill could predict the next movement. Lyria guided him. "Follow my voice," she said. "Do not look at the forms. Look at the light between them. Move where the light calls you, not where the eye fears." He tried to follow her instructions, focusing on the gaps, the empty spaces, the tiny movements of light that hinted at safety. The ship responded, gliding through folds of warped space that seemed to want to close around it. Shadows twisted along the edges of his vision, like massive creatures hiding just beyond perception, their forms shifting faster than his eyes could track. He realized with a shock that the silent sky was testing not just his reflexes but his mind. Panic would kill him. Hesitation would kill him. Only calm, decisive action could allow survival. Suddenly, a large object appeared ahead. It was enormous, more massive than any ship or asteroid he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with strange colors, like liquid metal reflecting distant stars. Elias froze for a moment, unable to comprehend its scale. Lyria's voice cut through his hesitation. "Move to the left. Trust the pattern, not your fear." He reacted instinctively, banking the ship sharply, weaving through a corridor of shifting light. The object seemed to respond, changing shape, as if aware of his maneuver. For a terrifying instant, he felt as if the ship itself was being swallowed by the void. Then, the path cleared, leaving him in a calmer section of space. His heart raced, but he could breathe again. "The sky adapts," Lyria said softly. "It learns from those who survive. That is why the next stage will be more precise. You must not only move. You must anticipate. You must act before it can respond." Elias took a deep breath, realizing that this was not just a physical test but a mental one. He had always relied on calculation, on probabilities, and equations. Now, he had to rely on instinct. He had to act without fully knowing the outcome. Humanity had faced impossible odds before on battlefields, in exploration, in survival, but never on a cosmic scale like this. And yet, somehow, the human mind had an edge: creativity, courage, and unpredictability. The shift intensified. Stars collapsed into pinpricks, then expanded into massive spheres of light. The edges of space shimmered and folded, and time itself seemed to stretch. Elias felt moments last, seconds and seconds vanish in a blink. The ship rocked violently, thrusters screaming, as he fought to keep it on course. His fingers moved with precision and instinct, adjusting angles and speed in ways no computer could calculate. Then came the silence. For a heartbeat, the universe seemed still. No stars moved, no light flickered, no shadow shifted. Elias's chest tightened. He knew this was a test, the calm before the next phase. Lyria's face appeared again, her eyes intense. "The calm is dangerous. Many have thought the quiet meant safety. It does not. Focus, move, act." Elias obeyed. He steered the ship toward a faint cluster of glowing particles that shimmered like a guide through the void. The silent sky seemed to resist, shifting subtly to block his path. Shapes formed and dissolved around him, vast structures of impossible geometry, like the sky itself was reaching for him. He realized with growing awe that the sky was not just space, it was intelligence. It could perceive, react, and learn. And yet, it could not predict human creativity. Hours or what felt like hours passed in this way. The silent sky shifted. Elias navigated, and Lyria guided. He began to understand the pattern, not through calculation, but through perception. He felt the rhythm of the shifts, the pauses, the accelerations, the subtle cues in the movement of light and shadow. Humanity had always observed patterns in nature, in stars, in life itself, but now he was a participant in a cosmic dance. Failure meant disappearance, but success meant survival and knowledge. At one point, a massive form materialized directly in his path. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a floating structure of light and shadow, twisting impossibly in multiple dimensions. He froze, heart pounding. The ship's instruments registered nothing, unable to interpret the phenomenon. Lyria's voice rang in his mind. "Do not calculate. Do not wait. Move now." Elias obeyed, turning the ship in a motion that was equal parts instinct and intuition. The structure twisted in response, a ripple of reality moving as if it had been expecting him. And then, miraculously, a path opened, a corridor of light that led past the object. He passed through, breathless, aware that the silent sky had learned something from him, but had not yet adapted fully. He began to feel a strange connection to the phenomenon. It was alive, yes, but it was not malevolent. It was testing, observing, and measuring intelligence and courage. Humanity, he realized, had the potential to survive where others could not. It was not technology alone that would save them, but adaptability, creativity, and the willingness to act under uncertainty. Lyria's guidance continued, but she allowed him more freedom now, trusting him to make decisions on instinct. "You are learning," she said. "The sky respects those who can think and feel. Humans have potential." Elias smiled faintly, a mix of relief and determination. The first shift had tested his reactions, but the second required understanding. He could no longer think like a pilot following instructions. He had to think like a human, unpredictable, creative, capable of improvisation. As the ship moved further from the initial center of the silent sky, Elias noticed a subtle change. The vast shapes and structures began to resemble forms he had seen in his own experiences: mountains, rivers, and cities, but twisted and magnified across the void. It was as if the sky was holding a mirror to humanity, reflecting imagination and perception back at him. He realized with wonder that he was not just surviving, he was learning from the sky as much as it was learning from him. Hours passed, though time felt distorted. Elias became attuned to the subtle signals, the patterns in the chaos. He could anticipate a fold before it happened, navigate corridors of shifting light without hesitation, and respond to threats that instruments could not detect. Humanity's ingenuity, creativity, and courage were his tools, and he used them with precision. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a calm area appeared ahead. Stars regained their proper positions, and the void seemed less hostile. Though still alive and shifting subtly, Elias allowed himself to breathe, though he knew this was only temporary. The silent sky was vast, intelligent, and patient. It would shift again, test again, and measure again. But for now, he had survived. Lyria appeared one last time in this phase, her eyes calm but serious. "You have learned something important," she said. "The sky tests all who enter, but it cannot predict creativity. It cannot measure courage. You have these. Humanity has these. Remember this, Captain Train. You are not alone, and you are not powerless. The sky will shift again, and you will be ready." Elias nodded, gripping the control panel. He understood now that survival in this sector depended not on speed or firepower, but on human qualities: adaptability, courage, and ingenuity. He had passed one of the most dangerous tests imaginable, and the knowledge of his success gave him hope. Humanity had a place in the vast universe, even against forces that seemed godlike. As he plotted a course back toward Nova Pax, Elias reflected on what he had learned. The silent sky was not an enemy in the traditional sense. It was a challenge, a measure, a test of potential, and humans, fragile and small as they were, had the spark to endure, to adapt, and to shine in the darkness. The city below awaited him, unaware of the invisible test that had unfolded just beyond their sky. Yet Elias knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The silent sky had shifted. Humanity had survived. And the universe had revealed that courage and creativity could overcome even the most incomprehensible odds. And somewhere in the shifting void, Lyria watched, her gaze steady, knowing that this was only the beginning. Humanity had passed one phase, but the tests would continue, and when they did, humans would be ready, armed with ingenuity, determination, and the courage that had defined them for millennia. Elias had been navigating the silent sky for what felt like endless hours. The initial shifts had tested him, but now he realized that the challenge was far from over. The void beyond Nova Pax had become unpredictable, like a living entity that could anticipate reactions and adapt faster than any human mind or artificial intelligence could. Yet Elias felt something new within himself. Confidence. He had learned to trust his instincts, to read subtle patterns in the stars, and to respond with creativity rather than calculation. Humanity had survived the first encounter, and now it was time to face the next. The ship moved carefully through the vast expanse, engines thrumming in a steady rhythm that contrasted with the unpredictable environment outside. Stars twisted and shifted in strange formations, and faint echoes of light flickered like whispers. Elias had learned to watch these subtle signals, interpreting the smallest movements as hints of safety or danger. Lyria's guidance was still present, though less direct than before. She had begun to let him act independently, offering advice only when the silent sky's patterns became too dangerous to navigate alone. "Captain," Lyria's voice echoed softly, "you are approaching the center of the shift. Be ready. The next test will measure more than speed or intuition. It will measure creativity and courage. Trust yourself." Elias nodded, gripping the controls tightly. He could not see the center, but he felt it. A pull, subtle yet insistent, drew him forward. The silent sky was aware of him, guiding him toward something enormous, something beyond comprehension. He realized with a mix of awe and fear that this was not just a test, it was an encounter, a meeting with intelligence on a scale humans had never faced before. The first sign came as a ripple across space. Stars bent unnaturally, forming arcs and spirals that should have been impossible. Shapes coalesced in the void, gigantic, abstract, and constantly shifting. At first, Elias could not make sense of them. They seemed random, chaotic, yet he sensed a hidden order, a structure beneath the apparent disorder. He remembered Lyria's words, "Focus on the light between forms, not on the shadows themselves." As he followed her advice, a pattern began to emerge. The massive shapes were moving in response to his ship's trajectory. The silent sky was aware of him, tracking his every maneuver. Every instinctive turn he made was anticipated, every hesitation punished. He realized that this was no ordinary navigation challenge. It was a test of adaptability and creativity. Human skill alone could not ensure survival. He had to act unpredictably, to think in ways that the silent sky could not predict. A sudden, massive shadow crossed his path. It moved faster than anything he had ever seen, a shape that seemed to fold and twist space as it moved. His instruments registered nothing. Radar and scanners could not comprehend the form. Elias froze for a heartbeat, heart pounding, before remembering Lyria's advice. He acted on instinct, banking the ship sharply in a movement that no protocol could calculate. The shadow twisted in response, shifting to fill the space he had vacated. Yet a tiny gap opened just enough for the ship to pass. The relief was immediate, but fleeting. Another structure appeared, larger and more complex, its geometry unlike anything in human experience. It spiraled and folded, layers of translucent planes intersecting in impossible angles. Elias's mind struggled to comprehend it. Lyria's voice guided him, calm and precise. "Do not analyze. Move. Feel the rhythm. The sky reacts to hesitation." Well, he took a deep breath, centering himself. Humanity had always faced danger, and in every challenge, the edge had been ingenuity and courage. He relied on that edge now. He allowed instinct to guide him, using intuition rather than calculation. His hands moved as if on their own, adjusting the ship's speed and angle with fluid precision. The impossible structures twisted and shifted around him, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, a path appeared. Elias's confidence grew with every successful maneuver. He began to understand the silent sky's rhythm, the subtle cues in the folding stars and moving shadows. Each successful passage taught him more, revealing patterns that were invisible to anyone who relied solely on instruments or logic. Humanity's unpredictability, its creativity, courage, and adaptability was giving him an edge no machine or protocol could replicate. Suddenly, the ship was caught in a vortex of light and shadow. Time seemed to distort, stretching moments into eternity and compressing others into blinks. Elias felt a physical pressure, a force that seemed to press on his mind as well as his body. He realized with shock that the silent sky was testing not just his navigation skills but his perception, his mental endurance, and his capacity to act under extreme uncertainty. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, focusing inward. Lyria's voice guided him. Anchor yourself. Let your mind flow with the rhythm, not against it. Observe, anticipate, but do not predict. Act on instinct, creativity, and courage. Elias opened his eyes and felt clarity. The path through the vortex became visible, not through calculation but through intuition. He moved the ship with fluid motions, dodging collapsing planes of light and shifting corridors of shadow. The vortex reacted to him, but he was no longer reacting to it blindly. He was participating in its rhythm, moving with it rather than against it. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. Elias lost track of time, immersed in the dance of survival. The silent sky continued to shift, folding and twisting space around him, but he moved with growing confidence. Every maneuver taught him more about the nature of the shifts. Every near miss honed his instincts. He began to realize that this was not just a test for him alone, it was a test for humanity. The sky was measuring potential, gauging whether humans could survive in a universe that was intelligent, unpredictable, and vast beyond comprehension. A sudden flash of light drew his attention. A massive formation of shimmering planes coalesced into a structure that resembled a city but impossibly large and impossible in geometry. Towers spiraled into infinite heights, streets twisted in loops that defied gravity, and bridges arched across spaces that had no beginning or end. Elias's breath caught. It was breathtaking, terrifying, and beautiful all at once. Lyria's voice broke through his awe. The core of the shift, she said softly. You are approaching it. This is where most fail. They rely on tools, logic, or fear. You must rely on courage, creativity, and adaptation. Elias nodded. He had learned the lesson well. His instruments had been almost useless. Fear had been a constant companion, yet his success had come from qualities uniquely human. Instinct, creativity, and courage. He adjusted the ship's trajectory, weaving through impossibly narrow corridors, dodging shifting towers and looping streets. The silent sky tested him. But he had learned to anticipate the flow without predicting it, to move in harmony rather than resistance. At one point, the ship became trapped between two massive structures that folded toward each other. There seemed to be no escape. Elias's mind raced, and he felt the familiar tension of life and death pressing against him. He realized that any hesitation could be fatal. He had to act creatively, in ways that the sky could not anticipate. He remembered a maneuver from an old training simulation. One humans had designed to escape collapsing tunnels. It was risky, dangerous, and impossible according to conventional physics, but in this moment, it was his only chance. He twisted the ship sharply, firing thrusters at angles that seemed counterintuitive. The structures folded closer, almost touching. But the ship slipped through, the edges grazing the hull. Alarms blared, but he was free. Relief washed over him. But he did not relax completely. The silent sky was still alive, still shifting, still watching. He continued, eyes fixed on the next challenge, hands steady on the controls. Lyria's voice remained in his mind, guiding when necessary but allowing independence. You have learned well, Captain. Humans are unpredictable. That is your strength. As he moved deeper into the core, he noticed another change. The shifting forms began to respond not just to movement, but to intent. It was as if the silent sky could sense the courage and creativity behind actions, measuring the quality of his choices rather than just their success. Every decision became more than survival. It was a statement of potential, a measure of humanity's capacity to endure, adapt, and overcome. Hours of navigation through the core passed, each challenge greater than the last. Massive structures shifted, impossible geometries folded and unfolded, and light twisted into colors he had never seen. Yet Elias adapted, relying on intuition and creativity, trusting his instincts and courage. The silent sky responded to him, but not in a hostile way. It tested. It learned. It acknowledged. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the chaotic core began to thin. The vast shifting structures became less threatening, corridors widened, and the pressure of the void eased. Elias allowed himself a moment to breathe, heart still pounding, mind still alert. He realized he had survived the second, more difficult test. The silent sky had measured human potential and found that humans were capable of extraordinary adaptation and courage. Lyria appeared one last time in this phase, her expression serene but serious. "You have passed a difficult stage," she said. "Few have survived this far. Your species has potential, Captain. Courage, creativity, and adaptability. These are your greatest tools. Remember them, for the sky will shift again, and the challenges will grow." Elias nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Humanity had proven itself, at least in part, capable of facing incomprehensible cosmic intelligence. The silent sky was not merely a threat, it was a challenge, a measure of potential, and a teacher. And humans, fragile yet resilient, had the qualities necessary to survive, adapt, and shine, even in the most dangerous and unpredictable corners of the universe. As he plotted a course through the outer edge of the core, Elias felt a sense of purpose he had never known. The silent sky was not something to fear alone, it was an opportunity. A test that could reveal the strength and ingenuity of humanity. And with every shift, every test, every moment of uncertainty, humans could prove that they were not just survivors. They were capable of rising above impossible odds. Elias drifted through the edge of the silent sky, his ship steady but alert. The chaos of the core had faded, replaced by a strange calm that was almost unnatural. Stars glimmered faintly, folding and stretching subtly, but nothing threatened his immediate path. Yet he knew better than to relax. The silent sky had tested him twice already, revealing the unpredictability and intelligence that lurked within the void. The calm was a prelude, a silent warning that the final test lay ahead. Lyria appeared on the console again, her translucent form shimmering like liquid starlight. "The final phase begins soon, Captain," she said. "The sky will measure more than movement or creativity now. It will measure endurance, courage under pressure, and the ability to lead others. You are not alone. Other humans remain in the field. Your actions can influence them." Elias's mind raced. He had focused on survival until now, relying on instinct, courage, and creativity. But the final stage demanded more. It demanded leadership, strategy, and trust in others. He realized that humanity's strength lay not in one individual but in collaboration, in combining minds and hearts to face challenges too vast for any one being. The first signs of the shift came slowly. Light rippled across space like a liquid surface, stars twisting into new formations, forming arcs, spirals, and impossible bridges. Shadows of enormous structures drifted, folding and unfolding in complex patterns. Elias could sense the scale. Whatever awaited him in the final phase was beyond anything he had experienced, beyond comprehension, yet terrifyingly beautiful. He opened the comms channel to other ships. A handful of pilots remained, those who had survived the first two shifts. Voices crackled with tension and awe. "Captain Train," one said. "Do you see this? The space. It's alive." "Yes," Elias replied, steadying his voice. "Focus on the gaps, not the shapes. The sky tests us, yes, but we can move through it. Trust your instincts. Trust each other. The other pilots nodded, adjusting their courses. Elias guided them subtly, offering advice drawn from his own survival through the earlier phases. This was no longer just about personal survival. It was about teaching and leading, sharing knowledge in real time while navigating the shifting void. He felt a weight settle on his shoulders, but also a strange clarity. Leadership required courage, yes, but also calm, observation, and the ability to inspire confidence in others. A sudden ripple surged through the void. The structures ahead expanded and folded. Massive shapes twisting toward the ships like reaching fingers. The pilots' ships jolted under the pressure, some faltering, some racing instinctively to avoid collapse. Elias moved swiftly, anticipating the shifts as he had done before. But now he guided others, directing them toward safe corridors through the chaos. Left, he commanded. Follow the light, not the shadow. Trust the gaps. Several ships adjusted in perfect synchrony, slipping through spaces that seemed impossible. Others faltered, caught by shifting forms, but Elias's quick thinking minimized losses. Each decision was a balance of risk and intuition. The silent sky responded, adapting to the pilot's actions. But Elias had learned a key principle. The sky could anticipate reactions, but it could not fully predict human ingenuity and cooperation. Hours passed, or what felt like hours. The void continued to shift, folding, stretching, and bending. Elias led the group through corridors of warped light and shadow, dodging collapsing structures, navigating impossible loops, and guiding the remaining ships toward the heart of the final phase. His mind remained focused, his instincts sharp, his courage unwavering. He realized that humanity's edge was not just individual skill, but collective adaptability, shared knowledge, and fearless cooperation. At one point, a massive formation loomed directly ahead. Towers spiraled into infinite heights, twisting streets folded upon themselves, and bridges arched across voids that seemed to have no beginning or end. Elias's ship shuddered under the gravitational distortions. He recognized immediately that this was a test unlike any before. It measured composure, foresight, and courage under impossible pressure. Hesitation could cost everything. He adjusted his trajectory, moving fluidly through the corridors of light. At the same time, he issued clear, precise instructions to the other pilots. Use the upper corridors. Light leads the way. Watch for collapsing bridges. Follow my lead. The pilots obeyed, their movements synchronized with Elias's, forming a chain of human ingenuity threading through the shifting structures. They moved as one, guided by instinct, communication, and trust. The silent sky reacted, folding and twisting around them. But Elias's leadership had created a rhythm, a flow that allowed humans to navigate where others would fail. Suddenly, one of the ships faltered, caught between two collapsing towers. Alarms blared. Elias did not hesitate. He calculated the approach. Not by instruments alone, but by intuition and courage. He adjusted his ship and moved close enough to guide the other pilot manually, creating a temporary corridor through which both ships could pass. The maneuver was risky, impossible by conventional logic, yet it worked. Survival depended on instinct, courage, and trust. The rest of the fleet followed, inspired by the success. Each human ship that survived reinforced the other's confidence, creating a network of adaptability and courage that allowed them to progress further into the heart of the silent sky. Elias realized that this was the essence of humanity. Not just survival, but the ability to lift others, to inspire, and to adapt collectively under extreme pressure. The central formation of the silent sky began to shrink, focusing its presence on a single corridor of light. Elias's ship moved toward it cautiously. The structures around him twisted and coiled, forming a tunnel of impossible geometry. But the path was navigable if one acted with courage and creativity. He guided the remaining pilots into position, each ship trusting instinct and experience rather than instruments alone. The final challenge approached. The light ahead shimmered, forming shapes that were impossible to comprehend. Elias could sense the intelligence behind the shift, the awareness of the sky itself. It was as if the universe had concentrated its perception on them. Measuring, observing, learning. Fear pressed at him. But he pushed it aside, focusing on what humans had always excelled at: courage, creativity, and adaptability. He led the ships through the corridor, anticipating folds and collapses, guiding each pilot with precise but fluid commands. Shadows twisted dangerously close, and some ships faltered under the pressure, yet the majority followed the pattern Elias had established. Together, they moved as one, threads of human potential weaving through the immense void. Hours or what felt like lifetimes passed. Finally, the corridor widened, the structures stabilized, and the light ahead softened into calm brilliance. Elias's ship emerged from the heart of the silent sky, followed closely by the remaining fleet. Stars returned to familiar patterns, light no longer twisted unnaturally, and the oppressive awareness of the sky receded. The final phase was complete. Humanity had survived. Lyria appeared once more, her luminous form glowing softly on the console. "You have done well, Captain," she said, her voice calm but filled with admiration. "You and your species have proven courage, creativity, and adaptability. You have survived impossible odds, and you have led others through the trial. Humanity has potential. Remember this. Even in the darkest, most unpredictable places, you can shine." Elias nodded, exhaustion and relief flooding him. He had faced forces beyond comprehension, navigated shifting realities, and guided others through life-threatening challenges. And yet, he had survived. Not through technology alone, but through qualities uniquely human. The silent sky had tested, measured, and acknowledged the potential of humanity. He looked around at the remaining pilots, each of them exhausted but alive. There was pride, relief, and awe in their expressions. They had faced a cosmic intelligence, navigated impossible patterns, and emerged not only unbroken but stronger. Humanity had proven itself capable of extraordinary courage and ingenuity. Elias adjusted the ship's course back toward Nova Pax. The city below awaited them, unaware of the extraordinary trials that had taken place just beyond their sky. He realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Humans had glimpsed the intelligence and vastness of the universe, and they had survived. That knowledge alone was transformative. As the ships moved through space, Elias reflected on the lessons of the silent sky. Survival had required more than skill. It required courage under pressure, creativity in the face of the impossible, and the ability to inspire and lead others. Humanity had all these qualities, and in the vast, unpredictable universe, those qualities were their greatest strength. The calm of the void settled around them. Stars glimmered in familiar patterns. The air of space quieted, and the immense structures of the silent sky faded into the distance. Elias allowed himself a moment of peace, a brief chance to savor what they had accomplished. Yet he knew the silent sky would not forget. It had observed, measured, and learned. Humanity's potential had been recognized, but the tests would continue, challenges would grow, and the universe would always demand courage, creativity, and adaptability. Lyria's final words echoed in his mind as they emerged fully from the silent sky. "This is not the end," she said softly. "It is only the beginning. Humanity has proven it can rise above the impossible. Remember your courage, your ingenuity, and your ability to work together. The universe awaits. Captain Train, and now, you are ready." Elias nodded, his heart steady. The silent sky had shifted, tested, and retreated. Humanity had survived, learned, and grown. And somewhere beyond the known stars, the universe waited with infinite challenges, but also with infinite opportunity. He knew that humans, fragile yet resilient, could meet those challenges and rise above them. The fleet continued its journey back to Nova Pax, each ship carrying not only pilots and crew, but the knowledge that humanity had faced an unimaginable trial and emerged stronger. The silent sky remained a reminder of the universe's vastness, intelligence, and beauty. But it also affirmed a truth Elias had long suspected. Humans had the courage, creativity, and determination to shine even in the darkest reaches of space. And somewhere in the depths of the shifting void, Lyria watched silently, knowing that humanity's story had only just begun, and that the silent sky would forever remember those who had proven that humans could face the impossible and prevail.